Marking a year of war in Europe, vigils worldwide, China sets out its position on solving the crisis. UN member states vote to adopt a resolution calling for peace in Ukraine and demand that Russia withdraws its troops. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian president's wife says the country will not mark the first anniversary of the invasion on Friday, but a year of successful resistance. Expert predictions: Ukraine will need at least 10 armored brigades and Russian drone attacks will continue. The war in Ukraine has now been going on for a full year, and Ukraine is proving to be a stronger force than expected. So what will the conflict look like over the next 12 months? According to International Institute for Strategic Studies Senior Fellow for Land Warfare, Ben Barry, Ukraine will plan counteroffensives to eject Russian forces from their country. But in order to carry out these attacks, they will want to have at least 10 armored brigades with modern Western armor. Current declarations by Ukraine's allies would supply about 20% of this by the summer, limiting Ukrainian combat power, he told Sky News. Moscow will try to outlast Ukraine and its allies, but will be forced to accept heavy losses as it continues to fortify its defenses. Its objectives are full control of the Donbas, Zaporizhia, and Kherson oblasts. It is not clear if it can yet concentrate enough capable and competent formations to achieve this, Mr. Barry added. Meanwhile, it will continue to both fortify its defenses and its First World War-style attacks in the Donbas. Intermittent Russian missile and drone attacks on civilian infrastructure will continue. However, he predicts it will be spring when large-scale offensive will become easier and political factors will impel both sides to attack. Whichever side attacks first will get political and military first-mover advantages, but will also expose themselves to counterattacks by defenders' artillery and armor, he said. He explains that all the time sufficient ammunition and equipment is supplied to Ukraine by the West, Kyiv will hold a tactical advantage. But, it is not clear that Kyiv has enough combat power to rapidly eject Russian forces to take back control of various territories. Expert predictions: Russians might exhaust themselves and morale will be a Ukrainian advantage. Throughout the day, we have been bringing you predictions from a variety of experts on what the next year in the Ukraine war could look like. For former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Stephen Pfeiffer, the only prediction he is confident is making is that Russia will not win in that time. Speaking to our live blogger Jess Sharp, Mr. Pfeiffer said Moscow has been aiming to take Kyiv and around two-thirds of eastern Ukraine, but it will not be able to do that. The Ukrainians can achieve some more progress in liberating more territory, they seem to be planning for a counteroffensive, he said. They have a lot of experience now and morale is certainly on their side. They are motivated, and in the spring, they will be integrating into their forces the arrival of Western battle tanks. However, whether Ukrainian forces will be able to completely drive out Russian troops is going to be the difficult challenge. It's more likely Kyiv will make some progress, but that this war is still going to go on for some time to come, until it reaches a point where maybe they're prepared to negotiate. He added that he would like to see the West give Ukraine more battle tanks and longer-range ground-to-ground missiles as time goes on. For Russia, the retired foreign service officer believes an offensive is already underway as Vladimir Putin pushes to take Bakhmut. He explained that the area has little strategic importance to either side, but Ukraine might be holding on to it in order to inflict lots of Russian casualties. The risk for the Russians is that they exhaust themselves and then they are unprepared when Ukrainians launch a counteroffensive, which I think will be later on more towards the spring, he added. The other area that may start to cause issues is the morale levels among troops, something Russian soldiers are already said to be struggling with. That will continue to be a factor that will be a significant advantage for the Ukrainian side, he said. Morale has been a huge issue for Russia and it explains why the Ukrainians have done so well in the past year. China calls for ceasefire. Beijing has unveiled a 12-point proposal for ending the war in Ukraine. China's foreign ministry is calling for a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia, and also urges the West to end economic sanctions targeted at Moscow. While China claims to be neutral, it has a no-limits relationship with Russia and has refused to limit its invasion, or even refer to it in this way. China abstained yesterday when the UN General Assembly approved a non-binding resolution that calls for Russia to end hostilities in Ukraine and withdraw its forces. We weren't supposed to be here. Minister pays tribute to bravery of Ukrainians at vigil. Ben Wallace was met with cheers tonight as he addressed the crowds at a vigil to mark the one-year anniversary of the Ukrainian war in Trafalgar Square. The defense minister said this time last year we weren't supposed to be here, pointing to a plan by Vladimir Putin to take over Ukraine in 3 weeks. All of you hear from Ukraine, the bravery of your country's men and women who have stood against this aggression, this illegal war, this challenge to freedom, democracy and human rights should be incredibly proud of what you are standing for, Mr. Wallace said. He added that all political parties in the UK fully support efforts to make sure Putin is defeated in Ukraine and his army is sent home. Mr. Wallace told the crowd that Britain trained 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers last year and said it will train another 20,000. He went on, like Ukraine, Britain remembers what it was like to stand alone against overwhelming odds when many people thought we didn't have a chance in 1939. Calling Ukrainian soldiers the bravest of the brave, he said, "You not only showed Russia, you showed us all when you stand up for human rights and your country anything is possible."